All right. Happy Wednesday night. Hope you guys are doing well. We're gonna run it up in the chat here on the live like we normally do. Monday and Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Get into all the things macroeconomics, estate planning, mitigating taxes, investments, and obviously digital assets. Long day. Hope you guys are crushing it this week. Things finally starting to move forward at a good clip, which is nice. Hopefully everything else is going good for you guys too. So as usual, like I said, everything is fair game in the chat tonight. Any of the topics I mentioned, or if you do have, something off topic that you would like to ask, you're welcome to ask that also. But without further ado, I don't really have a rant or anything to run down tonight, so we'll just go ahead and jump into the chat here and see what's going on. Alfredo, hola! What's going on, brother? He says, I always wondered, all this talk of XRP is only for institutions. Why did they let us retail buy it up then? What is your thesis, good sir? You had to get liquidity into it somehow to be able to test the market, right? So to get liquidity onto the mainnet, you would, basically create a secondary market for it, and then people could purchase it, and that would put liquidity into the asset so that you could trial it in specific use cases before you went to market at scale with it for institutions. So that's the reason. And really, retail doesn't own that much. Somewhere between 1 and 2 billion. There might be, say, maybe 3 to 5 billion total on exchanges and retail markets. So really not much of the supply at all. There's only 100 billion total. So with that, retail only owns, like I said, maybe between 1 and 2 billion. So, and that's just what I've seen. We've talked to a lot of people, which has been really cool. I got to meet a lot of people that have what I would consider a pretty good chunk of XRP. And so, and there's really not that many people that hold a significant amount, right? So even you can look at the rich list. There's what is there now? It's like 5.7 million wallets, something like that. It's not that many when you really think about 8 billion people. And, to be in the top 1% of that, you're looking at 570,000 wallets. And so if that's all there is, and we talk to a lot of people have multiple wallets to be able to diversify risk across those. So you're really looking at like maybe, I don't know, 75 to 100,000 people on the planet that have, more than 60,000 XRP, like being the top 1%. So really not that many people, but that's why I think they allowed retail to buy it, was just to create a market so that they could test it before they moved to institutional adoption. Appreciate you, Alfredo, on the super chat. Paul, thank you also for the super chat. He says, hey Jake, great to see your team onboarding institutional custody clients. Yes, sir. Can you give us an update on iTrust moves, when they will be ready, available? So this is a really good question. We actually had a call with Anchorage yesterday to go over what that's going to look like and when we'll be able to provide that service. So they're going to get us the documents. I don't want to say it's cumbersome or clunky, but they just want to make sure that if they're transferring the asset somewhere, that it's legit. Understand that. So there's a form that we have to fill out, or our clients will have to fill out, which we will pass to iTrust or whoever their custodian is for their IRA. Upon that, we'll schedule a time with us and then also the client, send a micro transaction and the full amount. There may be a fee to remove it from iTrust. We are not going to charge any fees for the migration of any IRA. So traditional, Roth, self-managed, self-directed, SEPA, any of those accounts. We're not charging any fees for opening up those accounts for the next, where's the date? Till the 30th of this month. So all the way through the end of this month, it'll be free to migrate your IRA over to Digital Wealth Partners, and we can earn a yield on the assets there in the IRA. And obviously we can, provide advice through our financial advisors on those assets as well. So that's kind of the update. I don't know that all of those are going to happen before the migration from Fortress to Fortis. Just being transparent, we're doing our best to work as fast as we can, but to be done by the 18th, it's already, tomorrow's the 12th. You only have 2 more days this week. You got a couple days in there that weekend. It'd be hard pressed to get that many people through in that period of time and have all those video conferences. And that's really the most time consuming step of it. Like, you could fill out the form, but to actually migrate the assets, that they're going to want to make sure that we're legit, they're legit, you're legit, you want this, sign on the dotted line. I'm sure that there will be some type of exit fee from them. And that's also, again, why we're not charging anything to migrate an IRA from them over to our platform. We don't want to, there is a fee, there's a cost to us, but we're not going to pass that on to the clients. We want to make sure that this is as easy and frictionless as possible to make that move and be able to start earning yield on your assets. So great question, Paul, and appreciate you being here tonight, asking that for the audience. Here's one. Xavier says, thank you for all that you do. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for being here and hanging out with me on a Wednesday night. Is it okay to join your mastermind group to have a foot in the door? Yes, it absolutely is. I don't have 6 figures invested in crypto, but hoping my crypto goes to 6 figures or more. Yeah, absolutely, brother. So I always like to do all 3. Okay, so when I say all 3, there is basically just put all the information out for free so people can do it themselves. Some people, that's what they want. They don't necessarily want to pay for things. They feel like they can learn it, they can do it themselves. Awesome. Happy to, that's really what I want. I want people to start thinking about this stuff, preparing for things, and have the data and the information to be able to do it themselves if they want to. Second on that would be done with you. That's kind of what the mastermind is, right? So provide all the services that we do, obviously through Digital Ascension Group, kind of a done for you type service. But we educate people there and provide other services that might be kind of a hand-holding type situation. You have a community there, other people that are a few steps ahead of you that have already been through what you're looking to do, either setting up an LLC or a trust or, setting up your family office, investing in private equity, making sure that you're securing your digital assets the right way, being able to mitigate any potential losses, not dealing with certain platforms. I've always learned best if there's somebody that's like 20 steps ahead of me. It's hard for them to remember what it was like in my shoes or in my position, right? But if you have somebody that's just been through that process, maybe 6 months ago or a couple weeks ago, and they felt comfortable and confident doing it, then they can really help you through it when you're going through that process. So that's what that community is about. And obviously digital assets and the aligned interest that everybody has there. And then post appreciation, that'll be a pretty big, powerful force of capital that can come together and take down deals and do deals together. We're going to be very protective of that community. Like you mentioned, if you want to get your foot in the door, I've said this before, and we will stop this once price appreciation happens, which I don't anticipate being too far in the future here, probably before the end of the year. There won't be any more free months, and the prices will go up significantly. Anybody that's in the door before then, I've always been of the mindset I take care of people that take care of me, and our family. And so, and I consider the mastermind our family. There's a lot of really good people there that have been around since we started it, and even longer. And just truly blessed to be a part of that group with those individuals, and it's continued to grow. We got a lot of new people in the group there that are bringing different expertise, and but the culture is the same. Everybody still is on the same path and helpful to one another. It's really just been pretty uplifting to see people come together in a way that's very different than other communities I've been a part of. So anyway, yeah, we would love to have you there. It's just mastermind.beyondbroke.com. And if you do want to try it out for a free month, you can put in the code BeyondBroke, all capitals, the number one, MO, like month at the end. And you can do that for, I think, any membership level, social, Carbon 1 or Carbon 2. And you can check it out, try it out for, 30 days risk-free. If you don't like it, can't connect to the Discord, have problems, cancel, you don't get charged. We just want to be able to give people the option and continue to be and make sure that, everybody's taken care of post-price appreciation. So thank you for the good question. The old man of XRP, he says, hi, Jake, since XRP isn't for retail, do you feel the price movement of pennies is irrelevant at this point? Yeah. When there was a guy the other day, I think he posted something like it's pumping and it went up 1 penny. I've seen it pump. I've been around for 4.5 years. When it moves, XRP moves very quickly. It's 1 cent is not a pump. And when we see institutional adoption, it's going to move very quickly and pennies will become irrelevant very quickly. For me personally, again, look, I have biases. Take this with a grain of salt. Do your own research, all those things. It's not financial advice. Anything under $1 for XRP, I think it's like Bitcoin under $1, in my opinion. I think it'll be maybe the only other asset that has a similar price appreciation over a similar period. Obviously, Bitcoin has a smaller supply than XRP, and so it started at a higher price, really, and got there and got the adoption a little bit faster. But I think that XRP is up for a similar journey over the next 5 or 10 years, potentially to even 6 figures and beyond, depending on how much adoption and how much value moves onto the network. So, if you had a chance to start over and you missed Bitcoin, which I'm jelly, just like everybody else, I wish I had got in on Bitcoin when it was $1. I wish I'd got in on Bitcoin in 2017. My brother was trying to tell me about this stuff, and I was like, it's a tulip bubble. You're crazy. That magical internet bunny is not going to do anything. So I was on the other side of the fence. Like, however, all those people that you talk to now that think you're crazy, I was that person in 2017 when my brother showed me this stuff. And I just, I wish I had, and if I had understood it back then, I probably could have got in, I heard about Bitcoin on Facebook and a bunch of things when it was running up. I think I first heard about it in 2017 in like maybe October before it really moved, and it was like $2,000, and then it went to 20. Maybe it was a little bit further along that. Maybe it was already like 8,000. I think the first time I heard about Bitcoin. But my brother got in on, some small cap altcoins, and when he was super young, and didn't cash out. Anyway, so just stuff like that. Anyway, back to the point. I think XRP is like buying Bitcoin at under $1. And if, pennies matter to you, sure, you might pick up some more, right? But I don't think you're going to look back and be upset if you bought a bunch. Atlantic Living, appreciate you being here. Always asking good questions. Considering buying employer stock, okay, 20% discount and free shares, okay. Is it a good time to buy stock regardless of possible 2025 and another 2008 financial collapse? When is not a good time to buy stocks? So, I can talk about my story a little bit. If you look at PE ratios and the Buffett indicator, just go Google those things. Pretty simple calculations. Stocks are overvalued. The stocks that make up the majority of the S&P 500 are significantly overvalued in comparison to basically the earnings to value ratio. what the company's actually earning versus the stock price. So you want to look for, like Ben Graham, and this is how Warren Buffett has invested the whole time. He's a value investor, so he's looking for fairly priced and slightly underpriced stocks. You want to buy stocks at a fair price. And so in doing that, I don't know what your company is. I don't know if your company is in the Fortune 100, the Fortune 500, if it's in the Russell 2000. If it's in the Russell 2000, now may be a good time. I think we are going to get that expansion move in the Russell 2000. I think that we're going to see interest rates drop. I think that we're going to have liquidity move back into markets. And I do think that there's a potential leg up in undervalued assets or stocks, altcoins, all those things. I don't know how long that period's going to last. I do think that there may be a downturn after that. You know, you said possible 2025, another 2008 financial collapse. I think they've engineered a way to get around that this time. And the way that that'll happen is actual economic growth through the implementation of these technologies and the efficiencies that they create and the deflationary effect of that. So this kind of goes back to the macroeconomic, topic. But with the implementation of a lot of these technologies, you've got AI, you've got blockchain smart contracts, you've got 3D printing, you've got potentially graphene. Like there's a lot of things that are right on the precipice of breaking through, and Moore's law is about to go parabolic in how fast things progress and how much leverage we get from tech. Over the last 20 years, you've seen an average of about maybe 7 to 9% deflation on an annual average for technological advancement. I think that that's going to become exponentially greater over the next couple decades for sure. So what does that mean for you? It means hopefully you're keeping up with the trends and you're using new technologies and learning how to use them, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind and you're going to have to do that very quickly, continually. It's not going to be like the fax machine for 5 or 10 years or longer before we move over to, start implementing email. It's going to be like you have this service or product that you use for maybe 1 or 2 years before that industry is completely eradicated by the next iteration of that. Maybe not quite that fast, maybe like a 3 to 5 year period, or maybe even less than that for the full adoption and, kind of collapse curve of things. But you want to be on the bleeding edge of that. And the sooner you can adopt technologies and get in front of them, just like crypto, right? Like you're at I don't want to say the mass adoption phase, but the early adopters, that's where we're at. You're right on the forefront of that. Second inning of a 9 series or a 9 inning game. That's about the time you want to get into stuff because the early adopters have been there. They've laid the groundwork. There's enough traction in an industry that you're going to see adoption. And that's when you want to jump on the bandwagon for something second or third inning of when things are around. So anyway, I don't know that we're going to see a financial collapse like we did in 2008. I think as things move on to blockchain, they'll have a way to offset the debt. And we'll move to a very different paradigm with this new financial system that has not existed in our lifetimes. So excited for that. But that also comes with new challenges because it's hard to look at historical cycles and then figure out what's going to happen as things progress. So I know I rambled on a lot there. I always do. Not saying it's a bad time to purchase stocks. Not saying it's a bad time to buy the 20% discount or free shares in your company. I would need more context around what the company does, and where it's positioned before giving a better answer than what I gave you. Glitch in the Matrix. Cool name. Good evening. I just wanted to make sure I have the basic membership, $25 a month. Awesome. Glad to see you in social. If/when my ISO tokens gain enough value to utilize your advanced services, I will be locked into your current prices. That's correct. Yeah. On the other side of price appreciation, when we move the prices up across the board for the mastermind, anybody that's here now, that's where you stay. Like I said, always take care of people that take care of me. Loyalty's big, and people that are proactive and willing to, spend a little bit of money to make sure that they're getting ahead. Always want to take care of those people. So yes, if you're in now, you are locked in. And even people that do the free thing, like you'll technically be in. So if you think price appreciation is going to happen in the next 30 days, I'm just saying, might be a good time to hop in there. Lake is hello, Jake. Thank you for being so awesome. I appreciate that and sharing your knowledge. Question: does it matter who our next president is to see crypto adoption? In my opinion, no. I obviously it's become a political topic. I do think that that's keeping the SEC from appealing the case with Ripple, and I do think that it's probably keeping Gary at bay, at least until after the election's over. And so we're going to have a period where it's not a whole lot of friction there, which is nice, because over the last 3-4 years here, it's been pretty much the Gary show. And I think Gary's probably out, here soon, one way or another. Either he advances in government with the Democrats coming in, or Trump's going to kick him. So one way or the other, Gary's out on the SEC, which is good for crypto. And I think we're going to see institutional adoption of these networks at scale for the financial system, which will kind of open Pandora's box for the rest of the industries to progress and move on chain as well. So no, I don't think it really matters one way or another who the president ends up being for crypto in particular. Other things, yeah, there's definitely some considerations there. Jesse Escobar, he says, hey, Jake, do you plan on liquidating some of your XRP at certain targets, or always hold, not financial advice? I do have a portion of my bag that I plan to sell at a certain price to upgrade my lifestyle a little bit and do things that I've put off over the last 4 years. That comes with tax implications. I'm well aware of those. We're working, have ways to mitigate them. And we're structured the right way, right? So that's just my personal deal. Is that right or wrong for other people? It's up to you. Like you said, not financial advice. That's just, I have accumulated a meaningful amount for me. There's a portion of that I plan on liquidating at 3 digits that'll carry me through for a period of time and allow me to do things that I put off, like I said. And beyond that, I plan on holding, and I will just continue to draw debt against that asset as it continues to increase in value over time. So that's, and if we can get things worked out with one of our lenders, which I was on the phone with today, I may not even have to do that. If I can just borrow against it on a longer time frame, then then I won't have to liquidate. But it's looking like that may be a little bit further off in the future. I'm really hopeful that if we right off the bat got a tier 1 asset designation for XRP, if the BIS came out tomorrow and says XRP is a tier 1 asset, then yeah, I'd probably be okay. But it's looking like I may have to liquidate a portion. So like I said, not financial advice. Everybody has their own situation. And you should do what's right for you and your family. So just to have a plan would be my recommendation. Angus says, smash the like button. Appreciate you, Angus. I don't say that enough. If you do find this valuable, if you like the questions, if you like the content, please click the like button, subscribe, share, do all the good stuff that helps drive the YouTube algorithm and get it out to some people that you think could benefit from the conversation here. Hey, very cool. Talk to me, Frosty. Says they are in Japan. It is mid-morning out there in Japan. I'm watching your yen. We're knocking on the door. We touched 140.8 earlier today. as it appreciates against the dollar. I'm waiting for it to break through that barrier. And if it moves strong through that barrier, then we're going to see the reverse carry trade unwind very quickly, which isn't good for the Nikkei or other markets. But if they pivot on rates here, that could be super bullish for risk on. That's what I think is going to happen. I think you're going to have Japan start to unwind. If they raise rates or oil goes up and they raise rates, you'll see things progress very quickly after that. Slam Adam says, if we don't have 100,000 digital assets yet, is there another company that does both digital asset custody and wealth management in the United States? No. We're one of two, and the other one you need at least 100 million. We break it down as low as we possibly can for institutional custody at 100,000. The fees on that really don't even justify the costs for us. I just want to make sure that it's available to people that as low as we can get it, right? So no, unfortunately, because of the cost associated with what we do, 100,000 is bottom of the barrel for what we're able to work with. But hopefully, on the other side of appreciation, I feel like we're kind of paving the way for a lot of these other RIAs and individuals. Most everybody else requires that you are accredited at a minimum, and then you participate in a fund. It's not direct wealth management for digital assets. We are by far the largest in number of clients, RIA domestic in here in the US, and I'm pretty confident globally. I don't know of anybody else that has as many clients as we do in any jurisdiction specific to digital assets, or is working with the partners or the people that we are to orchestrate yield and lending and all of the other things that you would get in traditional wealth management. So frustrating at times, just like you mentioned here. There's certain constraints that I wish I could change for people, but at this time, unfortunately, that's the minimum. So anyway, thank you for the question. And if you do have over 100,000 in digital assets and they are held in an LLC or a trust, then we can absolutely work with you to custody your assets, provide wealth management, still orchestrating the tri-party agreements to be able to borrow against it and earn the yield, but those are also close to where we need them to be. So anyway, yeah, I'm continually surprised that nobody else is, I don't want to say attempting to do this. There's a few other people that are attempting to do it, but not at the scale that we have gotten to, which is a blessing. Super grateful. So let's see here. We have Frank D from Australia. Hey, brother. He says, I have asked multiple times. Hopefully you can answer me this time. I'm getting to it. Thanks, Frank. What's the best wallet you recommend, and any other tips you have for keeping your assets safe? I would check out Decent. If you're looking for a good cold wallet, I like their user interface. I like the other things. I like the breadth of assets that they offer. Decent is our recommendation if you are going to have a cold wallet, and you can. I think we have a link maybe in the video here, or for sure on other videos, where you can go, and I think they give you some type of discount or benefit for that. So that would be my recommendation. If you can't work with us to hold an institutional custody, Decent, definitely the way to go. Yeah, there you go. Slam's got you. Let's see here. Bandman, AKFSF, appreciate you. He says, joining the Mastermind in DWP was the best decision I could have made for my digital assets. Thank you for the kind words. They do everything I want to do and much more. Thank you. Just waiting on price appreciation. Yeah, everything that we've built, I've tried to put myself in the client's shoes and basically like, and I have been, right? So I made a good chunk of change in 20 and 21. And with that, I started seeking out all these services and really thinking through what I wanted as somebody that holds an amount of digital assets. And so I just started putting things together, and I try to cater everything to the client. I want to make you and everybody else feel like it's kind of a no-brainer. I really dislike the way that traditional wealth management is run. I've orchestrated the fee structure so that it's not completely in the client's interest, but it's as much as I can make it where we still make enough money to get along and provide a good service. And we're incentivized to provide really good returns at Digital Wealth Partners. Same thing for the family office. We always want to put ourselves in a position where we're putting the client's best interest at first in front of any of the other professionals that we're working with. So we kind of sit as a counterparty to everybody that we work with. We will eventually bring everybody in-house over time, but we'll still maintain that mantra that the client's needs come first, irrespective of price point. I would rather foster long-term relationships where everybody that works with us knows that they're going to be treated well and that they're not going to be sold anything that they don't need. Participating in the liquidity event with you guys, and also everybody that works for us doing the same. The money will come. Right? We're not here for that. We're going to have plenty of that with the digital assets that we hold. And so really it's just about providing the best service on the market and creating a culture that fosters that long-term relationship with everybody. So same thing for the Mastermind, always looking to provide as much value as we can there. I've joined other masterminds and they cost me somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a year. And I will tell you, I didn't get half of the attention or education that I get or that I provide and our team provides in this group. I wanted to make it available to pretty much anybody that wanted in, irrespective of where you are, to be able to get in and have access to stuff that would help you, right? So again, fostering long-term relationships with people. It's not about the money, it's about the value and the relationships. So appreciate you being part of both and excited to work with you here in the not too distant future. It said they offer a ton of great services and would definitely need come moon time. Yeah, I've spent the last 2.5 years seeking out anything and everything that I need, and then what everybody else will need on the other side of price appreciation. Living Legacy says the Mastermind is awesome. For everyone considering, definitely worth it. Appreciate you, brother. Blessed to have you in there with us. Let's see. Here's a good one. Bugsy says, do you think the SEC will appeal? I do not. Again, for the reason I stated before, I think previous to the election, it would just reflect really poorly on the Democratic Party if they continued to go after Ripple. And both sides got the judge's judgment was in the middle, right? So the SEC can spin it that it was 12 times what Ripple asked for, and Ripple can spin it that it was 94% less than what the SEC asked for. So both sides have their narrative that both can say that they won or it was a good outcome. I said, and do you think we will have a price appreciation this year? Thank you. Won't be using your services in the near future. Well, you might be. Depends on price appreciation for things. Yeah, I'm confident that we could definitely see something this year that is a lot greater than most people are anticipating if we see institutional adoption. So there's the caveat. We need institutional adoption of the network at scale. And it's really just to settle transactions for the back end of financial markets. I think there's going to be some type of liquidity crisis. And when that happens, they'll have to move to instant settlement. Everything's in place to be able to do that. It's just regs that have kept that from happening. We saw, when COVID happened, if something needs to be passed very quickly, Congress will ram it through if they really need to. So I think, if we saw a significant fall in markets or there was imminent danger to the US dollar and the treasury market, then yeah, I think that they would probably move things along very quickly with stablecoin regs, which is very helpful for XRP and XLM. Randy, thank you, brother. Thank you for the super chat. He says, hi, Jake. I know self-development is a big priority for you. Yes, sir. It absolutely is. What would you say are the top 2 or 3 most life-changing books or influences you've been exposed to that facilitated personal growth? Man, I listen to a lot of YouTube, which I know sounds crazy. Jim Rohn, Earl Nightingale, two of the greatest speakers on that topic. There's Tony Robbins also, obviously. A lot of those, so just listening to that stuff and kind of picking yourself up by your bootstraps and deciding that you want better for yourself and then manifesting those things like Bob Proctor talks about. All those are great people to listen to. Some of it's a little woo-woo, but I can tell you when I've written things down or put things on a vision board and focused on them, they have moved into my life. And you can call that magic. You can call it whatever you want. Big believer in that. So that's been one of the things for me. You obviously have to take action, right? Like you can't just sit around, twiddle your thumbs, and hope that those things are going to show up. But if you're willing to take action and make choices, and even if you don't know the exact direction of things, I'll tell you this: like over the last 4 years, there's been periods where I've wondered, like, I don't know where this is going to take me, but I'm going to go down this road a little ways. And all those have been, you could look at them as failures, right? I've spent a lot of money and wasted time, quote unquote, wasted time. But as long as you're learning from those situations and the experience that you had, and you're able to apply that in some other situation, and you're able to provide value, maybe you're able to provide value or a partnership to somebody else and help them out of a situation that you learned from, right? All those things help set you apart and continue to propel you forward if you take them that way. Some books that have been very helpful: 0 to 1, Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David. Peter Thiel is who wrote 0 to 1. Read a couple books just recently. Adam Coffey, Empire Building was what I just read on a plane not too long ago. I try to read at least one book a month. When I travel, I'll listen to audiobooks, just Audible. I pay for like the subscription on there. It's like, I don't know, like $15 a month or something. And I'll just download. And most of the time they're references by other people. So I watch YouTube channels. I follow people that I think are intelligent. And oftentimes they'll make a recommendation. Dan Martell, super sharp guy. He's recommended a few books. The Future is Faster Than You Think is another really good book. I can't think of the gentleman that wrote it, but if you Google it, you can find it. Talk about all the different technologies that are going to converge. It was written in like 2018 or 19 before the pandemic. Outliers is another really good book. And talks about what success actually takes. And there is some luck associated with that. Like you really do kind of have to be in the right place at the right time with the right interest. But there is a sense of like you make a decision and this is what I'm going to do, and you work really hard at it also. And then those things also kind of line up. If you're willing to move to the area that has the environment that's required for you to be successful in a given field, that's what it takes sometimes, right? And then sometimes it's a stroke of luck. Like Bill Gates went to an elementary school or it was a high school, one of 3 in the nation that had a computer when he was going there, right? So stuff like that where it's kind of luck of the draw, but at the same time, like you can also put yourself in that environment if you're willing to do so. So I know I've rambled on a bunch of stuff here, but those are just some of the things that I can think of off the top of my head that have been influential for me and my self-development. I will tell you the most profound change that's caused my life to take a turn and for the better was that I've been very intentional about meeting at least one new person every single day and having an intimate conversation with them, getting to know them, getting to know what they're about, how I can help them. Always ask that question: how can I help you? What are you looking for? If you could wave a magic wand and problems could be fixed in your life, what does that look like? If you have the dream outcome for this conversation, what does that look like? Those are questions I often ask in conversations with almost everybody that I meet. You'd be surprised the answers that people give you. Most people, some people are embarrassed to ask for help for whatever reason. I was definitely early on, and when you can't get anything if you don't ask, right? What you ask for, you shall receive. So I think people's ego gets in the way sometimes of asking for help. See that in partners that we have sometimes. But anyway, rambling on here, but that's a really good question, Randy, and I appreciate the super chat. And hopefully, some of the things that I mentioned there are valuable for people, and you go, read them or do some research or listen to somebody, and it helps you on your own journey for personal development. Let's see here. Sergio says, I am a Mastermind member. Just started my Wyoming LLC. Awesome. What IRS form do I need to complete? We do that for you. So you will file with the state and the IRS. That's how you get your EIN. If you're working with us, if you're not, then you would just file directly with the IRS. And you can get it done cheaper, or I would recommend always using an attorney when you're doing stuff. You need a registered agent in Wyoming if you don't live there. So anyway, you could do it through LegalZoom, but your address is going to be on there, and it's not going to provide you all the benefits that you're wanting. So anyway, not to show my own service, but if you went to a lawyer and did everything that we do for you, it cost you around $3,000. We do it for $1,000 all in, so you get EIN, articles of incorporation, registered agent. We show you how to set up a bank account. You get a template for the operating agreement, which is normally the most expensive piece of it. It's specific to a digital asset holding company. We also file the BOIR for you, which is required this year in 2024 to be filed within 90 days of filing a new LLC. And once you work with us at Anchorage, we'll set up a bank account there for you. Their bank, they can have a cash account associated with your LLC. So anyway, try to make it one-stop shop. But again, like I said before, we just want to put the information out there. If people want to do it themselves, we want to empower you to do so as well. Let's see here. Mr. Z, he says, thanks for the work and dedication. Appreciate you and the kind words. If you have a social membership, $25 at post price appreciation, can we move to a higher carbon price at the current prices? Yeah. So everybody that's in now, all the prices are locked. So even if you wanted to move up, they stay the same post price appreciation. We're going to 10x everything on the other side of price appreciation. So just the social membership is going to be $250 a month. The carbon one is going to be $1,000 a month. The carbon two is going to be $2,500 a month. And carbon 3 will be 25 grand a month, which I think we provide enough value at all those tiers to justify those prices. But that is where they're going post price appreciation. So if you lock it in now, if you're in there now, like I said, good to go. Don't have to worry about any of that. This must have been from the Matrix earlier. There is no spoon. Let's see here. Jeremy, thank you for the super chat, brother. He says, great content, as always. Crypto Airy, oh boy, recently said that everyone who bought Polysign on Link 2 lost their investment. My account still shows it. Any update you can provide on Polysign? So the company's still alive. It still has assets. There's nobody that works there. It still owns the IP. It still has Atomic Net. It still has Project Mosaic, which is the institutional custody software. Nobody's bought it. So if they were to liquidate that IP, if somebody were to come in with a reasonable price and purchase it, I think that they could pass some of that money back to people. It's not a loss yet. They don't write it off. So with the current assets that it has, Jack got a golden parachute, and some did some of the other people. Look, I'm really not proud of how that was handled and what they did there. I think that they could have salvaged the company if they really wanted to. I won't get into that, but it's not. Don't write it off yet. It's not to say that it's a complete loss. Your shares are still there. If there is a liquidity event for Ripple equity, that was part of the compensation that they received for the purchase of standard custody. Now, it was at the last tender offer round of $61.48 a share. So even at a 10x, the equity that they have wouldn't really cover investors for the amount that was put into the company if they dissolved the company. But if they held on to the shares until Ripple's valuation continued to appreciate, even post going public, either through a direct listing or an IPO, if the share price, and I think it probably will long term, got to like a couple $1,000s, I think they could pay everybody back, and maybe it wouldn't be a bunch of gain, but you might get your money back on it. Link 2's last on the totem pole for that deal, and that's problematic. So they're going to pay out all of the investors that were directly on the cap table. Not to say that Link 2 isn't, but they purchased their shares on the secondary market from fund and then unnamed source. Somebody you would all know. And anyway, I'm not going to write it off just yet. We'll see what shakes out with it. I'm not, not hopeful. Just being transparent. Private investment's risky, right? Even things that seem like a sure bet, like PolySign did, and this just, for me, I got some money in on it, obviously, and our group did too. Again, not super happy with the outcome of that. But again, it looked really good. It looked enticing at the time. We trusted the people that were running it, Arthur Brito and David Schwartz. The IP, I will tell you this, the IP that they have is not better than what I'm using now, but like pretty friendly, man. Like, miss it sometimes. So, anyway, we'll see. I wouldn't write it off just yet, but I also don't think you should count on getting your money back either. It's kind of in limbo. Maybe it's this way. I have seen people that said just write it off, and if it comes back to you, then it's some money that you got back that you didn't think you had. So maybe that's the best way to look at it. I don't think that there's going to be a bunch of money made on it for sure. But I think there is a possibility that you could at least get your money back on it. If Link 2 does something to make it right, which I do think they probably should, because they were really the only one that sold it on the secondary market, and they really promoted it. Brad Kimes and DAI hyped it up a lot to their group and everybody else in the XRP community. So anyway, that's what I got for you. The answer is I don't know. And I wish I had an answer. So thank you for asking it. Miss Sanchez, how does one go about liquidating large amounts of digital assets, and how would we go about it? Would my bank automatically flag it? Most likely, especially if it came to your personal account and you didn't warn them about it and it came from a crypto exchange. Yeah, they're probably going to flag it. So the way that you would go about liquidating it is you would set up a corporate account. At an exchange, you would set up an LLC or trust that held the digital assets. And it would be a holding company that makes investments, and you would be the manager of that corporation, or LLC is actually what it would be, limited liability company. And then, you would go to your bank or a larger bank or institution. You would talk to them and say, hey, I would like to set up a private banking account, or something that's, for larger amounts of money. And they'll say, ooh, nice to meet you, Miss Sanchez. Please come talk to our private banking. When you walk in, and you'll say, hey, I have some private investments. I dabble in a couple different things, private equity and other things as well. And I think it's not going to be too far from now that I'm going to have a liquidity event. And when that happens, I'll be taking some profits in the range of 6 and 7 figures, and I would like to move it to a bank that I can trust, and that will work with me, and that won't flag my account immediately upon its landing. And they'll say, "Oh, that sounds great. We would love to set you up an account," and they'll go through the process. Right? You'll have to share your operating agreement with them. I would keep the capital contributions page to yourself, so that they don't see that part, because it's going to have the digital assets on it, even though they're not going to know what they are. They're just going to think they're account numbers. But I would hold that back. I would give them the rest of the operating agreement. They're going to ask you for a certificate of good standing, which is pretty easy. You can get from the state of Wyoming if you need it. The EIN, the articles of organization, and they're going to ask you for the controlling parties and the signatories on the account, which would be you. So you go in and you'll sign all that out and give them the information, and I'll set you up the account, and then you're going to deposit, whatever the minimum balance is in there, and just let it sit. And when it's time to draw down and take profit, if you've set up an account at an exchange like Caleb and Brown, just did a show with them not too long ago. Fees are a little high there, but it's well justified. You can call your broker and they'll do exactly what you want. Send it from your decent wallet over there to Caleb and Brown and liquidate it and have them wire it to your bank account. And because it says Caleb and Brown, that's the other thing about Caleb and Brown, is it sounds like another bank or institution. It doesn't sound like a crypto exchange. Like if it comes from Uphold or Coinbase, they're going to know that it's a crypto exchange. But if it comes from Caleb and Brown, they're like, oh, this is another brokerage. It's another institution. It's going to look less sketchy, really. So anyway, that's the way I would go about it. We give you a full SOP or standard operating procedure when people work with us to set up the LLC that goes over all of that. So Fire Marshal Bills, let's talk to your bank first. I would have a relationship with somebody, ideally. So let's see here. We are about an hour in. We'll hang out for another 30 minutes here. We'll shut her down. Scroll on down here and get into the meat of the questions. You guys always ask great questions, so appreciate y'all hanging out and doing that. Honest Aim, thank you for the super chat, brother. He says, thanks for everything that you do. What do you think of today's announcement of the EU implementing tight digital asset security, like for travel, US to do the same the next year, if I understand it? Yeah, they made it property. They gave it that designation in the EU today, which I thought was interesting. So, that's going to come with some other regulations around it. Sounds like you're discussing here. If you're sending it across borders or doing other things, then you might lock it down. These markets are going to become regulated. And I can tell you right now, MasterCard can see it all. I saw a deal today that said Monero can be traced now. So even if you think you're operating on a privacy network, Aleph Zero, we know the co-founder there really well, Matt Niemerg, and I would say that his network is pretty secure. They don't have a backdoor. So if you did want to send some things, maybe with a lot of anonymity, that would be where I would go at this point. But again, just don't be sending illicit transactions. Don't be trying to hide things. Just pay your taxes. And there's plenty of loopholes. I won't say loopholes. Plenty of ways that are regulated and compliant to be able to mitigate your taxes. But yeah, it's interesting, to see cross-border transactions have a little bit more security and stringency around them. when digital identity goes live on these networks, all that'll be out the window, right? So any anonymity that you thought you had, they'll be able to trace it back. Like I said, they already can. So, which is good. I think we're going to find out that, maybe Bitcoin and Tether have been used for some not so good things. They might end up being affiliated with some stuff that doesn't bode well for them. So we'll see on that. But that's just my 2 cents. Daniel, he says, "Hi, man. Appreciate you being here, brother. It's always a pleasure to see you interview with others in crypto. I would love to see you interview Cypress from CryptoX to talk about DeFi in XRP. Okay. He is head of the curve teaching DeFi. Yeah, I'm game for that. Cypress from CyberX. Is it Cyber or Cypher? You put a P. It's probably CypherX. That makes sense. You'd think it'd be PH though if it was Cypher. Anyway, yeah, would love to have a conversation with him about DeFi. DeFi is definitely going to change the way that TradFi works. And I think it'll be implemented in ways that remove frictions and costs associated with earning interest and making returns on your investments in multiple markets. But I don't think that those intermediaries are going to go away immediately. I think that there's definitely going to be regs that come around that require broker-dealers to be involved with certain transactions, that things be spun up in a regulated way. I think that all liquidity pools and AMMs will probably have to be, tied into SPVs long term. That's why we're building one of the products we're building. So anyway, I love DeFi. I love that it removes frictions. I love that it removes costs. I love that it improves the returns that people get. But I do think that there's a lot more compliant way that DeFi will be brought into the traditional financial system. And yeah, would love to talk to him. I don't know if that's anything he discusses, but I can definitely bring, that side of the conversation to the conversation if he's in. The big silly says, can you explain how ROUSD helps the use case for XRP and not make it useless? Wouldn't a stablecoin make money transfer easier than an unstable XRP? Yeah, this is a really good question. And I think a lot of people may have it. So stablecoins on the XRPO do a couple things. If both parties want to transact in that stablecoin, cool. Then you don't need an XRP in that situation, right? So if you want to send dollars to somebody else and they're willing to accept dollars, no big deal, right? You're going to get whatever you want on the other side of that transaction, and they're going to get the dollars. Now, if they want something other than what you're giving, right? So let's say they want their own currency or a different stable coin that's also issued on the XRPO and not what you want to pay them in. Now we need XRP, right? And stable coins being issued on the XRPO are super bullish because different people are going to want to use stable coins for different reasons. Most often because they might trust a certain party or earn or have incentives for holding certain stable coins. Or they may not want to transact in the US dollar. They may want to transact in the real or the ruble or the yen. And they don't want to hold USD, right? So in those cross-border payment transactions where you don't want to have a Nostro Vostro account where you're holding currencies for the counterparty that you may or may not trust. As an example, when Russia got sanctioned, they would only accept gold or rubles for trade with countries that would want to trade with them. And the EU is reliant on natural gas from Russia. Like Germany had a rough winter when that happened because they stopped transacting. And they would have had to hold bank accounts in Russia and hold rubles there in order to pay for those natural gas contracts. Okay. Well, it would have been great if they could have just paid in euros through XRP and settled in rubles on the other side. Right. So that's why XRP will be needed when the counterparty doesn't want what you're paying in. and there needs to be a DEX or a swap of the asset for them to receive what they want on the other side of the transaction, XRP. Liquidity pools, XRP. There's all kinds of things that are bullish about stablecoins being issued on the XRPL for XRP, because that's going to move more liquidity and value onto the network and encourage people to transact, which is what causes price appreciation of the asset. So hopefully I explained that well. If I didn't, you just put it in the chat below, and I'll come back to it and try to further that explanation for you. The big silly. Slam says, what do you recommend for wealth management until we grow to the net worth of 100K in the United States if we already have an LLC set up and are headed in the direction in the near future? You don't really need it. I know you probably don't want to hear that. But if you have less than $100,000, you really don't need wealth management. You don't have a whole, and I'm not like trying to be meaning or negative in any capacity, because I'm very confident that a lot of the assets that people hold will appreciate well beyond $100,000. But in the short term, if you have less than $100,000, there's really not a whole lot that you could do with it other than hold the investment that you have. We can't borrow against it. Nobody will lend against it. As DeFi progresses and costs come down and counterparties want to move into this space, there'll be retail solutions like Velo for that. Okay. But at an institutional level, like the lending starts at $250,000 and you need at least $500,000 in assets to borrow against it. And that's just where the fees are very small on that transaction. That's where it starts to make sense for people to lend or broker that deal. And that's why DeFi is great, because you don't have a middleman that needs to make any money, right? So I think that those will be much more apparent in retail applications, transactions less than $10,000, people that want to borrow against future income for their paycheck or something. But yeah, less than $100,000 in digital assets. If you have the LLC set up, that means when it does appreciate, you can take profit. We can work with you almost immediately, right? So you're ready to go, which is awesome. But as far as the wealth management component, and do you really need institutional custody at that point? If there are some circumstances where I would argue that you do, especially. And I don't know your situation, Slam, but we've talked with a lot of people that are have health problems, are older, and they want that security. They don't want to have to deal with a cold wallet. They don't want to have to deal with the keys. They don't want to have to deal with teaching their wife or their spouse or their children or the beneficiaries that they want to leave it to about the asset. And sometimes they don't even want to learn, right? And so that's kind of what we offer, is a very easy way to make sure that those assets are past the heirs, that they are managed in a way that's insured. Anyway, so I like I said, I would love it if we could work with people lower than that threshold, but that's really where the minimum's at in the current circumstance. And I don't think it'll be too long if you do have an allocation to XRP or other digital assets that most of the people on this channel like. I mean, even maybe Bitcoin or Ethereum. Probably not too far off from that 100,000. Victor has asked, will you be opening a DAG in Canada? If you do, I'd like to invest and help where I can. There's been a lot of interest from other countries and other jurisdictions, Victor. I have a gentleman in Australia that I talked to yesterday that's willing to help us in that capacity. He has industry expertise and knowledge and connections there that make it, meaningful and probably a little bit easier. We have Aaron Grenhaus up there in Canada that we work with currently. We can hold assets here domestic in the U.S. for international entities and individuals that we work with in that capacity. And we've tried to find all of the estate planners in each jurisdiction, and also somebody that is competent with taxes to be able to help people. on the other side of price appreciation. So we don't have, all the philanthropic things that we have here in the U.S., or the security or the concierge service, or a lot of the other amenities and benefits that we have been able to find here domestic. But we'll continue to scale those things out on the other side of price appreciation, and we'll likely partner with specific individuals in each jurisdiction to kind of set up satellite offices and provide a full scope to people in that jurisdiction that would want to work with us in that capacity. So definitely might take you up on the investment deal there in Canada, and maybe that's the way to go about it. I hadn't really considered that before. A lot of what I've done has been just self-funded up to this point. Maybe that's the way, is to incentivize other people and bring them in, and have mutual benefit in other jurisdictions. So I don't know if you have somebody there. Aaron doesn't seem overly eager to do a whole family office deal. He's very focused on the estate planning and mitigating taxes, and that's his lane, and that's kind of where he wants to sit. We'll likely do wealth management globally after we've got everything situated here in the U.S., and we should be able to provide that again for any international parties, just because the level of scrutiny here domestically in the U.S. is so high. Australia is very similar. So I would like Caleb and Brown. So they don't offer wealth management services there at Caleb and Brown. Looking at Zodia, potentially going to have a conversation with them for international custody. Talk to Anchorage, or not Anchorage. Anchorage is our custodian here in the U.S. Archax in the U.K. Just couldn't get to the point where, not to say we won't come back to them. We still really like them. Obviously, they're partnered with Ripple and Medico, but Zodia is too, and they seem a little bit further along. So going to have a conversation with them and potentially be able to offer yield and do some other stuff with them that we can't with Anchorage for international clients. So I'll keep you guys updated on that as it transpires. Let's see here. What is this? Oh, it's Gary Gonzalez. That was Gary Kinsler. He had me going, Gary. He says, "Hey, Jake, enjoy what you do for us. I was wondering if the Bank of Japan is dumping $63 billion excuse me, in treasuries could cause the domino effect." It absolutely could, Gary. It absolutely could. I think that a lot of people will sell off treasuries aside from Japan, but I think Japan is going to be the catalyst for that. Martin, hey brother, appreciate you hopping on here. He says, greetings from Argentina. Very cool. It's super awesome to see people from other countries watch my channel. If you had told me 4 years ago that I would be doing lives on YouTube and people from other countries would be watching me talk about digital assets, I would have said you're crazy. But here we are, and super blessed and grateful to be in a position to help people. So let's see here. Gregory, hey brother. He said, I heard you say that once we have 100K that we can onboard with Anchorage and we can generate 5% return on our XRP. Is that correct? That is correct. Yeah. So we're finalizing the agreements with Hashnote, which allows us to do covered calls and puts on clients' sub accounts. So you'll move whatever portion of assets you want into that sub account, and then that's what will generate yield. We should see somewhere between 4 and 8% returns over a year in a very low risk, very, very low risk way to generate that yield. So that is exactly, you were spot on with your statement there, sir. Let's see here. Yeah, I've talked to text. Yeah. Let's see here. Scroll on down. Already been through some of these. Is this a super chat that I missed? No. Pull it on down here to the bottom, and then we'll follow back up. Living Legacy. Well, this is just Legacy, sorry. 55.4. Thank you for the super chat. He says, hi, Jake. If I move my digital assets to my LLC, or if I have two LLCs, can I give one LLC control over the other? Thank you for all that you do. You could give one LLC control over the other. So maybe an explanation of kind of the longer term vision for why you set up an LLC would be in order here. So you'll have, I wish I could draw on here, but maybe one day we'll get like, Max keeps telling me I need to have like a, share my screen and do it. Maybe I'll get a whiteboard in the future and we'll do it. So you have an LLC down here. This is what holds your digital assets. It's what you set up first. It gives you a lot of flexibility and benefits. You get the full scope of the tax code to be able to write off things as long as you use the money appropriately. Profits. Up here, right above that, you would have a domestic asset protection trust. You may move a portion of the assets that you have here in the LLC into this trust to fund it. You may also have an LLC inside this domestic asset protection trust that acts as a credit chassis and allows you to draw down debt and do other things, issue life insurance policies, different stuff. But this trust will own the equity in this LLC. So you're going to give the equity to the trust along maybe, again, with some assets. So now you don't own either one of these things. This trust owns the LLC. Up here, you're going to set up a C Corp or a private trust company. And it's going to be the manager of this LLC that has the assets in it. Okay. And the reason that you would do that is that owner, if somebody takes control of the stock in this C Corp, they can't liquidate these assets and then pay themselves back and then give you the worthless stock because it's only the manager. So it's only entitled to the fees that are generated off of its management duties each year. And you can put provisions and things in place to make sure that people, can't just liquidate your stuff and like pay themselves back or do anything crazy. So, and those profits that roll up to the C Corp can be paid out to your living trust that can be revocable or irrevocable, that own your other assets like your home and your vehicles and family heirlooms and gold and silver, and still allow you to basically, manage those assets. And we would sit up here and co-manage that entity with you at DWP as an RIA, and that further extends your distance from the management of the assets. Obviously, you'd still be involved in some capacity, a large capacity. Anyway, so that's kind of the longer term vision for this. So I wouldn't necessarily set up an LLC that had another LLC as the owner. Most of the time when you see it done that way, you're not generating huge amounts of returns. And the one LLC will own the assets while the other one is a service company. So like, let's say you had a lawn care business, okay? And this LLC that you set up owns all of your lawn care assets. So the trucks, the trailers, the mowers, the weed eaters, all the stuff that you need to do the service. And then you would spin up another LLC that leased all the assets from this company to this one to do the service. So now if this one gets sued, somebody decides that you cut their lawn poorly or you mess something up or you hit a water line or something bad happens, and this company gets sued, it doesn't own any assets. All the assets are over here in this company that are being leased to this one, right? So now you just file bankruptcy with this one, spin up another one, lease the assets back to that one, and go back to work. That was like one of the things that one of my college professors taught me that was actually useful and applicable in the real world. But anyway, so that would be a circumstance where two LLCs make sense. And the one that owns the assets, again, you wouldn't want that to be a C Corp because if somebody comes in, equity units in an LLC are very different than stock in a corporation for what it allows people that hold it to do. So anyway, I don't want to go way down that rabbit hole, but maybe that gives you a little bit better vision of the long term, how you might set this up. There's lots of ways to do it. especially if there's a philanthropic component. It could look completely different than how I just illustrated with my wonderful hand gestures. So anyway, and that could look a little bit different depending on, what your long-term vision for you and your family was as well. So just one LLC most of the time is a great start. Gives you the most flexibility and benefit in the short term here until we do see price appreciation. Unless you have a lot of assets, like you got more than $500,000 invested, then you might go ahead and look at a trust. Vamos! Hey, brother. Good to see you on here. He says, love the hair. The hairline is starting to come in. It's still a little thin on the sides, but if you guys, need a hair transplant post price appreciation, highly recommend Este Mark. Is the clinic there in Turkey. We have a video on the channel if you want to check it out of our trip over there to Istanbul. Really enjoyed that, and obviously it's starting to come in and it's starting to look pretty good. So they do really good work and would highly recommend. Let's see here. Ray says, can I get up to the $1,000 without being a member? Not sure what you're asking there, Ray. Can you give me a little more context around that? Lorenzo! Hey, brother. Good to see you on here. Hope you're doing well. For those that don't know, Lorenzo is a CPA, as it says there on his name. We've had some chats with him. He has some ways, very lucrative ways to mitigate some taxes. Anyway, he says, great options with crypto are awesome way to generate yield. Yeah, that's what we're using, covered calls and puts where the collateral still stays in your institutional custody. You have full visibility of it at all times. It's never rehypothecated, and we're able to generate the yield on our clients' assets. That would be taxable income. Now, here's the piece, and Lorenzo might back me up on this. He might not. We have a letter from another CPA on this, Lorenzo. So staking, if you're working with an RIA to do that, you don't have domain or control, full control of the accounts, and you're not holding the assets. So any staking rewards that are paid to your account that we're working with you on are not taxable as income. Only when you remove them from the account or use them, right? When you come into full control and domain of those assets, that's at the point that it would become taxable to you. That's currently the way that the staking rules are written for taxes. So anyway, that's our workaround. And if you're earning staking rewards working with us, then not taxable until you have domain and control. Francis, thanks for the education and taking my question. Absolutely. If I have 100K in digital assets and participate in Anchorage, what are the costs, and do I have to relinquish custody to Anchorage? So you still sign the transactions on the account. So we can't do anything without you signing. That's one of the, being native to crypto, that's important to me. Especially if somebody else is managing my assets. I don't want them to have full control over stuff. I want say so. And so you're still a signer on the account. If you have it in a trust or you have a manager of your LLC, they're going to be the one executing the signing of those transactions, but you still have, visibility and control. The less control you have, the more benefits you get on the anonymity and the protections. So you kind of give and take, but you do get institutional custody, so for people that don't know, what does that even mean? It means that no person ever sees your keys. So how when you send a ledger transaction, gotta verify stuff. If you had to reissue a wallet, see keys, all that stuff. The keys that are for the wallets at Anchorage and the other custodians that we potentially work with are held across HSMs, and they're sharded. So they're broken apart. They're never fully together. They're held across hardware security modules in level 4 facilities. So armed guards and cameras and all this stuff. And it's just a metal box basically in there that is the computer that holds a portion of the key, not the whole thing. And when the algorithm is, or the quorum is met, the algorithm pulls the keys back together. They're then, the transactions issued on chain, and then they're resharded and sent back to the hardware security modules. So effectively quantum proof, if you were going to have something that was state of the art today, that's what it is. And they're insured up to $100 million worth of crime insurance. So the answer is you will move it to Anchorage. We will be a signer on that account with you. You will be a signer on the account. And if you have a trustee, they're a signer on the account. We can set up multi-sig, right? So if it requires, over a certain threshold, you want your spouse to sign off on it also, we can do that. But anyway, yeah, there's pros and cons to everything, right? So you won't have complete full control of everything. You'll issue, sign a transaction, send it to us. We sign the other side of it and do what you ask. So we try to provide all the benefits with the least amount of, friction or issues as possible. Cost, you asked that. So it's $1,000 to onboard if it's an entity. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to move an IRA from iTrust Capital or somebody else over to us before the end of September, it is free. We're waiving all fees. There are costs to remove it from the other custodian, so we don't want to ding you twice, basically. So anybody that wants to migrate an IRA over to us, you can just go check out the website, digitalwealthpartners.net, and fill out a contact us form. And happy to work with you. We'll get you on the list, and as soon as we have the documentation, pass that along, and we'll be able to earn yield on your assets in your IRA, which you can't do anywhere else. So pretty cool. But that's really the only cost. There is an ongoing cost. There's an AUM fee. We've made it as low as I possibly could. So anything under 5 million is 2% on an annual basis. Anything between 5 million and 10 million in assets with us is going to be 50 basis points or 0.5%. Anything north of 10 million is only 40 basis points a year or 40% of 1%. So for like every $100,000, it's $40 a month. That's as cheap as I can make it. We really don't even cover our cost on that side of things. So anyway, that's where it's at. I'll say this. So there are performance fees. If you have over 1.1 million, at that point is the only time we can charge performance fees. If your assets with us are less than that, then we cannot. So we just make you money, and we don't get anything for making you money besides the AUM fee. But beyond 1.1 million, we do take performance fees. So we have a high water mark. So for anybody that doesn't know what that means, it's basically like a minimum where we start the clock. And that's whatever your account was on December 31st, the year previous. So we have to generate at least 8% before we ever make another dime. So if we don't make you 8% on the year, you get all of it. Up to 8%, you get everything. There's no clawback. There's no catch up. There's none of that. So the first 8% of any yield that we generate for clients is yours. Anything between 8% and 20%, we take 20% of. So if we beat the market, we're doing good. We're doing 10, 12, 15, 18% returns on an annual basis. We get 20% of that. So if you wanted to do the math, let's say you had $1 million, just for easy math. We can't even make money on the million, but if we could, we generate you $200,000. It ends up being about 24 grand out of the 200,000 that we would make if we made you 20% return on your money. So about 10.4% of it. If we make you more than 20% on an annual basis, which I sure hope we do, then we go 50-50. So, and this doesn't account that. So this is probably something I should mention. This does not count the appreciation on your assets. So if you bring us assets and they appreciate, we're not entitled to any of that. You made that investment, we didn't. We only get compensated on stuff that we do. So if we're putting it through the calls and options and the covered calls and puts, and we generate a yield, cool, we get paid on that. If we delegate it to a liquidity pool, and we know that that one's going to make a ton of money and it generates more than 20%, cool, we make some money. If we're looking at AMMs and we get in early before there's a whole lot of liquidity, and we know that we're going to have a little bit longer time horizon, and we're going to keep it in the pool for 2 years, and we generate 120% returns for putting it in an A&M over the 2 years, cool, we get compensated on that. But the appreciation of the asset itself, we don't get at all. It's only on the returns that we generate for clients from actions that we take or advise on. So just want to make that clear for people. People that bring us assets, we're not entitled to any appreciation or gains on that. It's only things that we do to generate the yield at Digital Wealth Partners. So again, try to make this like, if I was a client, how would I want it to work? That's how I've set it up. Digital Native, appreciate you in the super chat. He says, if I have a Roth 401k with my company now, what do you recommend to do with this if I can do anything? Thanks for information. If you're still with the company, you're stuck. It's awesome that it's a Roth 401k, because that means on the back side of it, there's not going to be taxes taken out. That means you paid the taxes on the front end. I've never heard of a Roth 401k. I'm not saying they don't exist, just not something that I've dealt with. I've heard of, IRAs, Roth IRAs. And if you have an IRA, then we can work with you. But if it's a 401k, 401ks have very specific terms that they have to be invested in: traditional stock market, bonds, equities, treasuries, commodities, ETFs, indexes, no crypto, no real estate, no private investments, none of that stuff in a 401k. So if you leave your company, you could roll your 401k over to a self-directed IRA, and then we can work with you for sure. The only way that you'd be able to get exposure inside of a 401k would be to purchase the ETFs. You might be able to squeak it into the ETP over there in the European markets that has XRP's ETP, which I'm not saying to do or not to do, but that seems like a good choice to me. If I had no other choice and had my money in a 401k, I would be trying to figure that out. Oftentimes your company is going to be the one directing the investment with the 401k, and you're not going to have a whole lot of choices. So you might have a self-directed 401k if you're a business owner. But anyway, so I don't know that there's a whole lot we can do with you or for you if you have a 401k. If it is a Roth IRA, there is a potential that we could work with you. We can work with any type of IRA, traditional Roth, self-directed, or SEPA. Any of those we can do. So if you have digital assets in those, or you would like to roll it over and invest in digital assets, DWP can do that. Fozzie Bear, hey brother, hope you're well. When we sign up for custody with Anchorage, are the bank accounts multi-currency? Ooh, good question. Also, does DWP offer a service to get brokerage accounts for your LLC? We have a Schwab account, and Goldman. As through our other TAMP. It's not something that we've really pushed so far. We do plan to, we would like to be the first firm to ever marry institutional crypto management along with traditional wealth management and alternative investments. Talking to Black Diamond about that now with Anchorage. So cool, but it's probably 6 or 8 months away. But we do have, we could move it. We could send it from the bank account over there to those other accounts if you wanted to swap it at Schwab. It's an interesting question you ask about the multi-currency. I don't believe so. I think it's going to be denominated in US dollars. If we take profits, it's going to be in USD, and we would have to convert that to the Australian dollar if we send it over there for you. Maybe in the short term, we might see a CBDC there in Australia after Japan rolls theirs out. And if it's on the XRPL, there might be a way to swap between a stable coin that you take profits into, or just take profits directly into an Aussie dollar stable coin on the XRPL. or an Aussie dollar CBDC. I don't know. I'm confident that they'll probably offer that. So at currently, no. Next couple quarters, likely. We'll figure out a solution for it one way or the other. Where are we at on time here? Oh, I'm at an hour and a half. Jake's bedtime. Let's see here. I'll take a couple more and then we'll wrap it up for tonight. Let's see. Kelly Niles. Hey, brother. Hope you're doing well. A little bit earlier for you over there in California. Thank you for all the knowledge. Is there a time COVID rule that you are able to take a 401k and roll it into a Roth IRA? So a Roth, you're going to have to take the taxes out when you roll it, but you could do that anytime. It's not like it's from COVID. As long as you left the previous employer, then you have access to that 401k and you can roll it. If as long as you still work for the employer that you have the 401k with, you're stuck. So I don't know if that helps you or not, but yeah, you could absolutely roll it if you've left your employer. Ed, as he's asked a couple good questions here that I'll end with. So he says, what will collateralized loan rates, terms, lengths be? So we're working on that. I had a conversation today, 6 months or less in the short term here. So you'll be basically make the interest payments on it. You could roll it again, pay it off with another loan if we needed to. I'm working on ways to be able to get longer term collateralized loans. It's not something that really exists in the industry right now just because everybody likes being liquid. And most people that are deploying cash into crypto are crypto native and they want to be liquid. So they don't want their capital locked up for a long time. We do have other debt and credit funds that we work with. They're just not in the space yet. And they are willing to do longer term loans. You actually asked kind of a question here that I think would be suitable for that. So if you had a business plan, I think we could probably work a longer term loan for that, and there would be justification for it. But they are collateralized, so you don't really need anything. There's not a whole lot of underwriting. It's here's the asset. I'm going to take 30, 40% LTV against it. The interest rates are somewhere between 8 and 12%, and the term on the loan is 6 months or less currently. But again, we're looking to lengthen those hopefully by the end of Q4. So hopefully that answers your question for you. And Dennis has asked immediate funding. There is some underwriting that they do. You got to go through KYC. We got to pass them that information. We're trying to make it as easy and seamless as possible. We'll have to get a couple across the line within the next couple months to really codify that and make sure it's easy and we can get funding faster. In the short term, it's probably a couple weeks before we can get funding closed to clients, but still better than nothing, right? And you get all the benefits there. So if you went to a DeFi protocol, yeah, cool. You have immediate funding, but you don't have insurance on the assets. If there is, a liquidation event, they're going to liquidate you. You have no first right of refusal. They're not going to have a capital call. We just have a lot of things in the contract, and the assets can't be removed from the wallet without your signature in our deal. So anyway, a lot of benefit to doing it the way that we're doing it. It's still a little bit manual. It's not smart contracts where you just get. So anyway, appreciate you guys. Hopefully y'all have a wonderful evening. As always, if you are interested in any of the things that we're doing, you can go check out the Mastermind, mastermind.beyondbroke.com. Again, if you do want to try that out for a free month before we see price appreciation and prices go up 10x, the discount code is Beyond Broke, all capitals, 1, the number 1, MO, like month, still capitalized on the MO. So check that out. It works for, again, social, Carbon 1, or Carbon 2 memberships. We didn't talk about any of the private deals that we run in that community, but we do a lot of Reg D 506B deals and get people access to private investments, even if they're not accredited. You can participate in those there. And anything else that we provide. Digital Ascension Group, so the Digital Family Office.io is the domain there. You can schedule a call with myself or somebody else on our staff for initial consult, or you can go check out digitalwealthpartners.net, and that would be the site if you're looking for custody and wealth management and all the wonderful things there. So again, hope you guys have a wonderful evening, a wonderful week, and we will see you guys on the next one.